Welcome to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking to Keenan Pascal. He is the co-founder and CEO of a local company called Token Naturals, which is in some really interesting lines of business. And so welcome to the show, Keenan. I really appreciate you taking the time today to come and talk about your business and your journey.
No, thank you. I appreciate the time that you took out to interview us.
So tell me a little bit about Token Naturals. What is it that you guys are doing over there?
Yeah, so the company is it's really a manufacturing hub. So we started in the cocktail space, in the bitters entity as a manufacturer, and then we grew it into also cannabis manufacturing, and then now we're in the non-alcoholic space. So we've kind of touched three different areas through the manufacturing. So we've got a 16,000 square foot building here just north of downtown Edmonton, and we just pump out widgets.
Awesome. And so when did you start the business then?
Yeah, so we started the company in 2016. So like my background, I was a banker. I was at ATB, and then I was like, they're doing the Scotiabank bank career, kind of climbing the ladder, and then I went into an MBA, and I just happened to meet this chemical engineer out there that was like, you know what, cannabis is going to be something we should look into it. So over 2014, 2015, 2016, we watched the market, and then we decided to take the plunge towards the end of 2016 and quit our jobs and become cannabis manufacturers.
Cannabis kings.
Cannabis kings.
So refresh my memory. When was it that the legalization of cannabis? What year was that?
2018 is when they did the recreational markets. That's what everyone got excited for. So when you were watching the big stock boom, that was, you bought in 2016 and hopefully you sold in 2018, and then you sold at the peak. And if you held it now, you're probably kicking yourself.
So wait a minute, are you kicking yourself because you guys have been growing a business as opposed to selling the business in that peak time?
No, for us, like we're kind of checking the second wave. So our real concept that like second mouse gets the cheese. Yeah. So where we put ourselves in the value chain was very much downstream. So like me and my co-founder always joke around, like if we would have, because raising money when we first started was like a breeze in this sense that you said cannabis and people are like, here's a check. And we were actually really strategic about how we raised our money, who we sold it to, how our dilution went. And because of that, we still own three of us have like 50% of our company after the seed round and A round and a B round.
Excellent.
So that was that kind of mentality of not getting too caught up in the green rush was great for us, because now we're kind of what's left over is really strong cannabis companies, and you're starting to get a new wave of smarter investors that are looking with a little bit more strategic, like, hey, here's an asset that cash flows as opposed to buying a hype.
Yeah. And that has been the key, right? There's been so much turbulence within that marketplace where there was so much money got pumped into it. A bunch of companies started, and then there was the collapse, and a lot of them are no longer around. And so, yeah, the structure that you guys laid out was really smart. And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but you said you were a banker. So that must have been driven by your expertise there too, and the way you structured some of that. Is that right, Keenan?
Yeah, I won't take a claim to all of it. I think it was also a combination of like, we didn't know how to raise money at the time. So we were also like young guys. We just finished our MBAs. Jamie owned a bar. So like there's three of us. So there's Cam, he was a chemical engineer that I went to school with. Jamie owned a nightclub here, and he was kind of our first cash guy. And then myself. So I was kind of the one that steered the ship while everyone came up with the ideas. And we really early on invested in a board. And I think that was something that a lot of startups, kind of hesitate to do. And for us, it was just a game changer. So having that, that mentorship piece like built into your company, they were very much like, okay, do you actually need to raise $5 million right now to build this out? Or should you build a pilot lab? Do you need to dilute yourself here, or do you want to wait and use debt? Like that was the conversations we had. And because of that, like, and obviously like my background in finance helps for sure. But I think that was what kind of a perfect storm of not, going too big, too fast.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So the timing of the board, you said that was in the early days then of the startup?
Yeah. So the story for the board is like I was at ATB. They had this program that you could get scholarships for corporate governance course through the U of A. So I took the course through a scholarship, And then once I got there, I was like, no, I was by far the smallest company in the room. And I was thinking, should I get a board? It sounds cool. It sounds like, everyone who's done it should get it. And so I talked to the professor, Darren Rawson, and then Mary Cameron. And I was like, well, this is what I'm doing. And they're like, yeah, like we'd help you build your board. And they're super cool. Like they moved their fees down the road for when we could afford it. And then they're like, okay, well, you have to pay your board. Like it's a paid position if you want to get like top tier. It's like you could go to your friends and just kind of get the people you noticed on your board, but they're like, you guys should get a board member that like you don't know. And so that came at a price, obviously. So I think the chair was like 25 and the other two were like 15,000 for the year. But we took the first round of investment. We raised like $500,000 and we're like, okay, well, let's pay for a board. And that was like, I'll never forget. Like I always tell this story it's kind of, we're 1 year into the business in terms of like designing it, applications, all that fun stuff. So you have a blueprint, and we have this, blueprint. We just spent, X amount of money on the design and architecture and mechanical. And I sit in front of our board member, Greg McGlone, who's like worked for Nutrium and like that big potash company.
Yep.
And, it was a $5 million build out. He's like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And we were like, and this is after we paid to like design it. He's like, where's your pilot lab? Why would you not build a pilot lab? And I was like, well, like I've never built a manufacturing company. I came from finance. I was like, well, what is it? What's a pilot lab? He's like, well, you got to have a proof of concept to make sure, you can license it and this works and this works. So he redid our model where we just built out a box that was able to be licensed and it was modular. So that I claim that to like kind of the saving of our company, where we didn't go the path that all the other cannabis companies did, where you built everything at once. We just built what we needed and then we add on. So our whole facility is like a big Lego blocks.
Cool. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think a lot of businesses, startups in particular, don't think about, is that whole board part of it, the advice coming in. And I think paid boards positions are a scary thing for a lot of startups because of that whole cash flow crunch issue and everything else, and trying to stretch every dollar as far as they possibly can get. But the value in it, you feel is the reason why you guys are where you're at today, right?
Right, exponential value to what we pay them. Like even raising capital, like when you have a really strong board on your pitch deck, or you have or you just need an introduction, like an introduction versus a cold call is like night and day. So when I was told new entrepreneurs, like maybe it's not an advisory board that you need right now, but like get mentorship, and then from there, hire them, because that's where I feel the difference between a free board where they love you, they're here because they believe in the business and you, and then paid boards like I've got a job to do, I'm getting paid to make sure this company is not messing around. They're gonna be even tougher on you. So I think it's a combination of that.
Yeah, so digging into that just a little bit deeper, because I think this is a concept that a lot of people would be curious to understand the functioning of that. So how often does your board meet and advise you, and or is it kind of an ongoing thing where there is a sounding board all the time? What kind of structure is in place?
Yeah, so we have so our advisory board meets quarterly. So we meet once a quarter for a full day, and then me and the chair have a 30-minute call every Monday, because he's very much engaged in the business. But they're on anytime I need them. Like it's I'm not afraid to call any of our board members and say, hey, I've got this problem, or here's a cool update, just keeping them looped in. And sometimes it's like, we just had a board meeting, but there's a lot going on the next 3 weeks. Let's meet again. And yeah, when you get that kind of rapport built, it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, and so in terms of the their commitment into the company too, are they all investors, or do you advise to maybe not have them as investors? What is your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's definitely the two trains of thought, where there's like the representation of the shareholder, and they're kind of like external. For us, as they started all external, and then as the company grew and they're watching us do raises, and actually we're gonna come in. So it was nice that especially the first year, like after year one, when we had to write the checks and pay them, they're actually like, here, take your money back. We want shares. And that was, it was a great testament to like the rapport we built and them believing in the company. So that was that great feeling. But then also you read the other side of governance where it's like, you got to keep kind of separation of church and state. And these guys are here to advise and not be the shareholder. And so they don't have that conflict of interest. But for me, I felt it was a great combination, having them fully engaged and in it for the whole long run.
Yeah, that's really cool. So let's go back to the early days. So you started out with the bitters company, is where you got your start. But did you always have in mind that you were going to be in the cannabis side of things too, or was it something that just evolved that way?
Yeah, so we started with this vision. Okay, we're going to do this cannabis company. So the reason we even started this company was Cam. He was trying to create this cannabis beverage. So this is 2016. This is before legalization, before cannabis 2.0. And it was a great beverage. He was taking it, like everyone was going around school and getting high on this this beverage. And it was like, great, no hangover. Like, this is cool. And Cam was like, let me go try to get this made. And he went to all these different LPs that you'd know all the public names, and they were just slamming the door on his face and being like, no, we're going to be vertically integrated. It's all about cultivation, and we're raising money on like the square footage of how many grows and our lights and our capacity. So there was no interest in co-manufacturing. And then extraction kind of became the next thing. And then that ended up getting commoditized. But when we were first starting, we were looking at, okay, how do we bring this product to market? And we couldn't. There was nobody who was doing it. And then that was where the business really kind of started. And we're like, okay, well, let's go downstream. Like after cultivation, what's next? It's extraction. So we kind of started getting our feet wet with this extraction concept, knowing that, okay, eventually we're going to just go straight into manufacturing, because that's where we felt the sweet spot was. So extraction, cannabis was, ethanol extraction is one of the ways to do it. Bitters are the exact same thing. So essentially what you're doing is taking moonshine from a distillery. So before they turn into vodka and gin, you just take your plant material and you just soak it for 4 weeks. Pulls out all the flavoring. You add a bittering agent like gentian or woodwort, and that's how you make bitters. So Cam, we were kind of twiddling our thumbs. We just did a small raise. We had Jamie gave us like $250,000, and we were on our way to do another quarter. So our seed round was like $500,000. And we're like, well, we don't want to tell investors it's going to take us 3 years before we can even do anything. So let's figure something out. So Cam's like, well, we'll make bitters. So we just made we were literally making them in my garage. We started in my kitchen. My fiance kicked us out because we were making a big mess. And she's like, you guys got to do this shit in the garage. So we're in the garage making bitters. And so it was that, that minimal viable product, early adopter. So we went to our bar friends and we're like, hey, here's some bitters, token bitters, like just use them in your restaurants. And what happened was the restaurants started, making cocktails, competitions. And then Joe Blow would come in and be like, oh, how do I make that at home? And they're like, oh, you need token bitters. And token bitters didn't really exist. And then one day, like Alcana, like the Wine and Beyond portfolio, calls us and was like, hey, we heard about you guys bitters. We want to support local. We'll take 1,000 or some like a number that blew our mind. And we're like, we don't know how to make 1,000 of these at all. So we called like the distilleries around here. So we started with Strathcona, ended up finding Hanson Distillery, and we're like, can you guys make this for us, with us? And that's how the bitters company started. And then within a year, it was like the biggest bitters company in Alberta. And then the city was like, hey, let's try to export this. And we got into Japan. And so the bitters was always just kind of a marketing tool or a kind of gap filler while we were building this cannabis company.
Yeah, but using the same technology that you're going to be using with the cannabis, and so really refining probably the processes there along the way.
Oh yeah, it was right? It was clutch. Like the amount of mistakes we make, bottles and like your labels and little like how you fill it, your operating procedures. Like we learned on small batches over and over again, and then now when we do a big like. Today they're doing like 60,000 chocolates this week. And like, that's all because we started doing, 100 ml bottles and bitters in the garage.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah. So then it just naturally, then as soon as the licensing came in, then you were ready to start launching then into the edibles and so on. Cannabis.
Yeah. So you have these, cannabis it's a long journey of regulatory tape. So you like our story is essentially, we figured out what we wanted to do over 2016, 2017, 2018, 19, you kind of put your package together, you start working with the government, be like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm looking to do, this is where I'm at. and 2020 is when we actually started building our facility. So we found a facility that we liked, we acquired it. 2021 is when we actually started getting all the licenses. So that all that time we're not making any money in cannabis. You have to use, you know, your runway and raise capital. And then 2021 we got all 3 of the big licenses you need. So you get a processing license, which allows you to bring cannabis in and do something with it and send it back to another license. The second one was a research license. So we can take something in, we can test it, flavor it, whatever, and we don't have to destroy it, because cannabis is really heavily regulated. Like if you don't have a license, cannabis to leave your facility has to go be mixed with kitty litter essentially and destroyed. So they have some really weird rules. And then the third one was a sales license. So that allows us to, whatever we make, we could sell it to the recreational market through the provincial boards. So all 3 of those we got in 2021, and then 2022 is kind of our launch year. So we're making products.
Yeah. And so is it just Alberta then distributed for the cannabis, or are you also going across Canada with that?
Across Canada. So we're in Ontario, BC, Saskatchewan, and Alberta right now.
Yeah. Has there been much of a challenge in navigating provincial regulations along the way, or is it pretty uniform?
Oh, I wish it was uniform. No, it's like a whole different ball game every time. So like if you go into Saskatchewan, you're working with a wholesaler that like the province is kind of hands off, and you just working with one wholesaler. Alberta, you have to work with AGLC, and they have their own set of rules and category buyers. Ontario has their own set of rules. Like even like Ontario wants like a certain box size that they want things master cased in, versus different than Alberta. Like if your barcode goes vertically or horizontally, like all these provinces have different rules because you're talking to a different government board on each side. So it's quite chaotic. But once you get it, it's a great barrier to entry for, you know, other people. So our business model is like, well, hey, instead of doing this all by yourself, come to Token, we'll make it for you. You can use our licenses, and you can skip, you know, 3 years of headache, and we just take a piece and charge you per widget.
Yeah, well, and that's what I noticed on your website there. You do a lot of private label then.
Yeah. So a lot of like, we're kind of that boring company in the background where it's, you know, we're all that comes through our facility, but you don't see it. Like it's not our brand on the product. We're just like that little Coca-Cola on the back of a Sprite can that says, you know, made here.
Yeah. So in terms of volume, what percentage of your business would be private label versus labeled under the Token brand?
Right now, it'd probably be 70-30 in the private label, Token label.
Really?
So Token being the smaller one.
Yeah.
I think over the next 2 years, we'll probably get into like that 50-50.
Yeah.
But yeah, for now, like the nice thing too is like partnering with brands, like especially in the cannabis space, it's so new and everybody's kind of learning at the same time. So it's kind of fun to partner with, you know, certain, like there's a company that came out of Washington called Can Squares. So they went through a BC group and then met up with us. Now we're making these chocolates that are selling out all over BC. And we wouldn't have been able to do that by ourselves. Like we didn't have any chocolate experience. We just know how to make widgets. So they were like, here's how you make chocolates and here's the equipment you need. And then our team played around with chocolates for like 3 months, and now they're crushing boatloads of chocolate.
Yeah. And so then that can expand then into private labeling for other people in the chocolate areas or under your own brand and so on. And so you're able to learn through the collaboration and continue to grow and evolve the offering then. Yeah, that's really cool.
No, it's been fun. Like our whole goal is to really be like the heart of cannabis in Canada, essentially. Like things run through our facility. And now we're looking at expanding beyond just cannabis, and now we're like a manufacturer that does cannabis instead of a cannabis manufacturer has been an interesting switch. And then the mind shift of thinking, you know, bigger than just making cannabis widgets. And like once you learn how to do something, that's why we got the non-alcoholic space. Is like once you can make it, you know, if it's infused or not infused, it's the same effort.
Yeah. And so from a strategic standpoint, some people would say, well, you should stay in your lane and be very focused, right? Yeah. Your niche, the riches are in the niches, as the Americans say. So you're going broader than that, though. I mean, it's still within a lane, but it's a broader lane. It's maybe a multi-lane highway. So strategically speaking, can you walk us through that? Was this something where you and your partners were, you know, all turned to each other and say, yeah, let's just go wider? Or like, was there any real thought into it, or just evolved that way because of opportunities popping up?
Yeah, it was definitely a combination of like deep diving opportunities and seeing, okay, are we chasing a shiny ball? Are we actually, does this make sense for the business? And it really came down to looking at the efficiencies. So in cannabis, like you can't have anything. Like I'm right now, I'm on the top of my cannabis facility. The other bay is empty, currently getting built out, but you can only manufacture cannabis in this facility. So there's all that regulatory kind of guide rails. So when we were making the decision of like, hey, do we expand? So we looked at bitters. We did bitters and then transitioned into cannabis. And then what was happening was people were coming in here and being like, oh, can you actually use that filling machine to fill my topical? And I was like, well, technically we can't, because we can't have non-cannabis stuff in here. And they're like, well, like there's nowhere else to do it here in Edmonton. Like it's, I couldn't go to the government facilities and I have to wait 3 months or 6 months just to get in a meeting.
Yeah.
Can you guys just, do it on the side? And us being a little scrappy, we're like, okay, well, let's take a machine. And so we bought this, like we bought these, like off Amazon, those like car spray tents, like those big tents, like it looks like a blow up tent for kids. So it's a clean room. So we just bought these clean rooms and we're like, hey, well, any old equipment we're not using, shoot it over there. So we'd move equipment over there, and then someone would come in and like, here's your jars, here's your labels, here's what needs to go in the jar. And like in an afternoon, we'd make like $2,000 just on the side because we had all the equipment and the expertise, and the team knows how to do it. They just literally walk next door. So for us, it was still kind of staying in our lane of, okay, now we're looking at manufacturing more broadly, and cannabis becomes like a kind of an arm of it, and manufacturing is kind of what we're good at. And then that kind of was the shift. And the other thing with cannabis is like, it's so regulated in terms of like banking. Like the banks don't touch cannabis companies, but I can now go to ATB and I can go to BDC and even the grants that we get and be like, hey, I'm actually not a cannabis company. Surprised I am, but I'm a manufacturer first. And then they get all excited about Alberta manufacturing and growing the processing and the capabilities, especially after COVID, and like support local. And so that became our kind of our concept now, is like, hey, how do we turn this into a hub for all manufacturing?
Oh, very interesting. Yeah. And I know from a marketing perspective, our expertise, it's really difficult to, do digital advertising and marketing of cannabis products. There's just so many rules around that as well. And so you'll be able to develop a lot more brand exposure because of the non-cannabis, I guess, focus now, I suppose you could say.
I can give you a little secret. So what we did, so all our marketing goes under our bitters company. Yeah. So we sponsor things, golf tournaments, go wherever, and we just, that's the bitters company. They're both token, and that was our little workaround for because it's heavily regulated. Yeah. And so for the marketing standpoint, we just found another niche that wasn't a cannabis product, and it's a separate legal entity. It just happens to have the same name. Yeah. And the lawyers were like, checks out, so go ahead.
That's the thing. Like you're saying, you got to be scrappy sometimes, right? And you got to work around the edges of some of that stuff as entrepreneurs to really make it work. Okay, so tell me, through this journey, all the regulation, all the changes that have been happening, it's been I'd imagine a bit of a roller coaster where it's kind of hold on and just see where the ride takes you some days. Lessons learned. What were some of the big mistakes that you maybe made along the way where it's like, God damn it, if I knew now if I knew then what I know now, that would have saved me a whole pile of headache or money or whatever.
I would say like flexibility and excitement in your early stages of entrepreneurship are just key. So being flexible and don't get too excited. Because like one great example of excitement was, so dispensaries were a big thing in 2018, and we had this license on the corner of Jasper and 109. So we were the first company to put a cannabis license on Jasper Ave, and we created this ripple effect where you couldn't go in any direction, because like the nightclub we had was Avenue and it used to be Fluid. So you couldn't put a dispensary in either direction for like 7 blocks because of these weird rules. Yeah. And so like Aurora, Canopy, Tokyo Smoke, all these companies are calling us like, hey, we'll give you like $1.5 million for your piece of paper, not like for your built out anything, like for a piece of paper. And we're like, okay, this is something. Yeah. So we ended up going to a bunch of small towns like Redwater, Leduc, Vermilion, Cold Lake, and we did the exact same thing. Got a license on a main street, bundled this thing up, and we're like, hey, we made it. We're gonna sell this portfolio, and we're laughing. So we ended up getting a deal for $8 million. was what the negotiation ended up turning into. But at the time we were dumb in terms of really like getting excited. And the only time me and my business partner really ever fought was over the thing of signing this option deal. So because nothing was done, there was so much uncertainty, we sold the option to buy this portfolio for $8 million, not the actual like portfolio upfront.
Oh yeah.
I didn't want to sell the option, but the price was just crazy. Like the next best deal was like 2 million or 3.4. So yeah, signed the option for 8. And that's where we disagreed. And while we were building it, so we started building these facilities, like we're in it for like 1.9. And then the Alberta government paused license applications. Like they weren't licensing anybody else for an indefinite amount of time. So this thing went from worth 8 million down to 0. So they're like, actually, we're just going to walk away from this deal. We're not going to execute this option. So we're stuck with these half-built stores, $2 million in, and we're like, well, shit, we're hooped.
Yeah.
And that's that excitement part where we just should have kept a level head the whole time, because that was an emotional roller coaster. And we ended up saving the deal. Like we found the next buyer. So we still sold it for like 3.4. So we did quite well for selling, non-built out facilities. Cause this was on the upswing, the hype in that 2018, 2019. And that's how we bought our building. And that was a lot of our seed money. And that's why we were able to keep control of our business this long. But yeah, for entrepreneurs, like you're going to see these crazy deals and they're going to seem like you just figured it all out, and something out of your control can just pull the rug under you, and you got to be able to adapt and bounce back. So be a level head. If I could have gone back to my younger self, I would just be like, don't get super excited. Just calm down. It sounds like a lot of money, or it sounds like you're in a big hole. Either way, you're going to come out on the other side.
Yeah. And maybe also, like, instead of the option, actually sell the damn thing completely outright.
Exactly.
It's a little less or something, right? Yeah. No, that's a really interesting story, and definitely one that would have created some anxiety, I'm sure.
There's some sleepless nights there for sure.
Yeah. So what about the future? What's going to be the next thing that you have to conquer or overcome? Do you think? What's the biggest challenge in taking the business to the next level, whatever that next level might look like?
Yeah, for us, it's going to be that scale up. So for us, that shift of, okay, we're not a startup anymore, in the sense that, like, you can't just go to, daddy investor group and be like, hey, I'm running out of runway. Can I have some more cash? And here you go there. It's not like, hey, you guys got to stand on your own 2 feet. You said for the last years, you're going to do this, this, this. Are you executing? Are you performing? Are you growing your team with your cash flow? Are you growing your team with, X, Y, Z? And that's the new thing for us. And that's what's exciting for me. It's like, hey, we can now go and get debt instead of equity. We can now, launch products and put budgets together off of like what we're bringing in. So I think that's the real exciting part, is kind of seeing the company in this scale up phase. Because eventually, like, we do plan to exit out and sell this asset as a cash flowing business. So for us, it's creating this next wave of products and SKUs and revenue streams that are going to get our future acquirer all excited.
Yeah. So now it's about revenue growth, really, right? So just really trying to push the product and innovate as well at the same time. Yeah.
It's about kind of coming up with that. Like, we just put 16 new SKUs into the Alberta or the Ontario province, and they're we didn't come up with all of them. It's like, okay, we got to go find the new innovative brands that are coming out of the cannabis space, and we got to convince them to do it with us.
Yeah.
And then it's a combination of, like, they're coming to us and knocking on our doors saying, hey, it's way faster if you could do this for us than us building it ourselves. So it's now that, okay, what's the next wave of cool things that are going to be made in the cannabis space, and then also in the non-alcoholic space? I'm really excited for seeing what that is.
Yeah, really exciting, Keenan. I really appreciate you sharing the story and just the journey that you've been on. It sounds like a wild ride, and it sounds like you guys are just poised for success. So it's just upward and onward, right?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. So it's been an absolute blast.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And if our viewers are interested in checking out any of our past episodes, just head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. There you'll find our archive as well as an application form. If you have an interesting story that you want to share, just fill that out and you could be a future guest of Amplify Your Business. So thank you again, Keenan. Really appreciate it. And I wish
Thank you.
everybody a prosperous day.